Hello everyone. In the last video, we saw what is a calculated column and we wrote our first piece of DAX. But as I mentioned before, typically you would not be writing calculated columns in DAX. One reason being that a lot of it can be done in Power Query as well. DAX would typically be used for creating something called a measure. Let's see how this works. So I will come back to our Power BI file. And you can see here that we have our 5 markets, the sales and the profit. What we would like to do now is to divide the sum of profit by the sum of sales. Now, if you're wondering, why can't we do this in Power Query? Think about it. If I go back to Power Query, and let us say we create a new column, and we divide our profit by sales, we will get the result in another column, but that would not be correct because I cannot find the profit margin at a transaction level. I cannot say that the profit margin for the first transaction is 62 divided by 221 minus 288 divided by 3709. And like this, we want to get all the rows and then find the average. That would not be correct. The profit margin would be calculated at an aggregate level, which means we want to find the sum of profit divided by the sum of sales. To do this, I'm going to select new measure. Again, when you click on the new measure, the formula bar opens up. And here I would like to write that our profit margin is equal to the sum of profit divided by the sum of sales. Now you notice that syntactically it's very similar to Excel. So you have an equal to sign, there is a function, then there is a parentheses. So it's very similar to Excel. In fact, DAX and Excel formulas also share a lot of similarity. There are many functions between them that are common, but there are also a lot of dissimilarities. They're also unique in their own way. So we're writing sum of profit divided by sum of sales. Press enter. And now this measure that you have created has appeared here in the field list with a calculator symbol next to it. In the last video, you remember we created a calculated column. That is the one which is coming here, dispatch time. This is the one that has a table icon with a sigma. The dispatch time written in Power Query, M language, has a sigma. And the profit margin is a calculator, like this. Now we do want to convert this into a percentage first. So I'll click on the profit margin and then we will convert this into a percentage. And once we have done that, I can now simply drag it into the table and we get our result. 88 divided by 7,83,000 would be 11.34%. At this point, I would also like to talk about something which is the implicit and the explicit measures. In fact, in a lot of YouTube videos and forums and books, you would refer, or rather you would see that people have referred to measures as implicit and explicit. Let me explain what that means. One more time, I want to make a table with the market and the sales value in it. Now, the sum of sales that you're getting here is what we call an implicit measure. That means that we did not write sum of sales anywhere. It is automatically aggregating it as the sum of sales. If we want to change it to the average or the min or the max, then I can just click on the drop down and we can change it from here. But what about an explicit measure in that case? If I want to make an explicit measure, then I will have to go to new measure. And here we will have to write that our sales, or rather the sum of sales, is equal to the sum of sales. Now, a lot of you might find this very odd because we are actually doing the same thing, right? We are writing a measure, which is the sum of sales. But the thing is that it's a measure, so I can call this from other measures as well. This is why we call it an explicit measure, because this sum of sales, when I drag it inside the table, Of course, it will give us the same answer, but this one we have computed. That means we have complete control and flexibility over it. I can change this as in how I want. On the other hand, the sum of sales that was coming earlier is an implicit measure, which means that I can't really control it other than changing it to an average, a min, or a max. So the concept of implicit and explicit is mostly theoretical. So I would not like you to think too much about it, even though I will be sharing a link on the PowerPoint in case you want to read more about it. The more important thing here is that we have all learned how to create a first measure, which is the profit margin.